again. And so when you talk about a coup over America, how do we ever ferret this out and remove it? I mean, do we start, as you've been calling for, an audit of the private Federal Reserve?
Yeah, it won't happen until the people become really outraged. They are growing in their outrage, but it has to translate into different ideas and different respect for the Constitution, different people up here, and we're in the midst of this transition. And as the crisis worsen, the real challenge is will we end up with a dictatorship, or are we going to have people who are demanding, a republic and open government? And that might take another 10, 15 years to determine. But in the midst of a crisis, it's the worst time to present our views. So that's why we have to do our best to get as many people to agree with us as possible, so that in the rebuilding that we have some ideas about what the monetary system should be like and what our foreign policy ought to be like, which means that if we had a proper foreign policy, the incentive to have this CIA making excuses for knowing everything about us and everything that's going on in the world, that would all change. I don't believe that we shouldn't have some intelligence gathering, but I don't like these clandestine operations and killings and things that we've known to have happened.
Well, dovetailing with that, you grilled Bernanke a few days ago, and then the chairman, for those who haven't seen the video, it's up on PrisonPlanet.com, Frank agreed with you and said we need an investigation of the admitted, and I went and pulled the articles up, because Bernanke was acting like it was preposterous, but it's on record that BCCI and the Federal Reserve, it's on record in 2004 and 5, tens of billions of dollars from the Federal Reserve shipped on pallets into Iraq. It's on record, Associated Press, that tens of billions of drug money has been found in the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas. That was in 2000. That was in the AP. And then Bernanke just laughs at you and says it doesn't exist. It's like Potok from the Southern Poverty Law Center laughing and saying these Tea Party kooks believe in a world government, when you've got every global leader calling for global government, the IMF calling for a new world order, Herman von Rompuy, Ban Ki-moon calling for it. I mean, I think they're really destroying what credibility they had left by stonewalling us. Can you speak specifically to congressional investigation separate from an audit, just directly on, is the Federal Reserve involved in Greece? Well, we know they gave the money to Goldman Sachs, and we know they are involved.
Right. No, and he used the word bizarre, so he was accusing me of being bizarre, which means anybody who agrees with my concerns are considered bizarre as well. And you're right in commenting about what Barney Frank said at the end of my questioning, that we should look into it. And to his credit, he has sent a letter to the chairman, Bernanke, and copied me, and he's insisting that that the Federal Reserve respond to my charges, look into it. He asked Bernanke to contact my office to go over the details of the concerns that I've had, and then report back. So Barney Frank did follow up with it. Interestingly, Barney Frank was involved with Henry Gonzalez, and you know that Henry Gonzalez was against the Federal Reserve and demanded these investigations. And the gentleman that wrote the book from the University of Texas, he worked with Gonzalez, and so he has firsthand information. To call this bizarre and it's off the wall, Arbach was in the Federal Reserve and the Congress on the banking committee for 17 years and was involved in these investigations. And to just write us off and say, I've never heard it. Sort of, when he said that, sort of reminded me about, the debates when the mayor, shouted, and I can't believe this stuff, What are you saying?
It's incredible. We've only got 4 minutes left with Congressman Ron Paul. We appreciate him joining us live today. The New York Times is reporting they may try to revive the carbon tax with a direct tax on fuel at the refinery. Senate trio hopes to hit pay dirt with carbon fee at the oil company's request. Where is the carbon tax going, as well as health care?
Well, it's hard for me to believe they'll do that, even though it's alive and they want to, and that's their goal, and they will if they can. But under these conditions, it is so bad of an idea, it just blows my mind to think that they'll pursue that. So I don't know the details on whether that's going to go through or not, but I can guarantee you there's plenty up here who still believe in it and will pursue it. But I hope they come to their senses and realize how detrimental it would be.
There's a Mary Landrieu quote in here saying, we need to pass this. This is going to help Americans. I mean, how bizarre. More taxes. People are going bankrupt. In closing, Congressman, we've now discovered that an Obama campaign operative has founded a coffee party. I actually had this idea with listeners 2 months ago to get real constitutionalists to take the Tea Parties back from the neocons. Now it turns out Obama picked up this idea and that his campaign operatives are now getting all this media attention to tell us to love our federal government, that it's our federal government. I mean, that shows how powerful the Tea Parties are, if not just the Republican establishment, but now the Democrats are flooding in trying to pose as patriots.
Yeah. Yeah, they want us to love the government. How about loving our country and understanding what freedom is all about? But the battle is outside. I mean, one thing is they're starting to recognize that the battle may be outside of the conventional wisdom of Republicans and Democrats that run Washington, and actually the discussion going on in the independent Tea Party type movement. And there's no reason to think that everybody is going to believe the right thing and get together and do the right thing in those who are objecting. But anybody who's involved better realize that if a significant movement, erupts like the Tea Party movement, there will be plenty left and right, and everybody else who has a special interest will want to get in and try to control it.
Well, to see the establishment trying to pose as anti-establishment is truly sickening. but I mean, look at your 84% approval rating. People know the real McCoy. 1 minute left. The economy. A lot of top economists are now agreeing with you and others that we may have a mega depression in the next 16 months, and they're positioning the IMF and World Bank with a new global constitution where they will pose as saviors again. How concerned are you that this recession could get a lot worse?
Well, I think it is going to get a lot worse, and what is happening now is Wall Street's recovered and a few companies have recovered, but the unemployment rate is still very high and getting worse. And there will be plans. I'm sure they've been talking about it for quite a few years because those who run the international banking system know that they're in trouble, so they are laying plans for this. But people do ask me about, well, do you think this will bring on the North American Union and North American currency? And I really don't think so. I think the bigger concern should be a worldwide currency, and the IMF and the United Nations grabbing hold and trying to dictate to us. But we have economic laws on our side because you can propose these things, and even if it does serve the special interest, if it violates economic law, it won't work. So they can't maintain a good currency, and that's why I think the European Union is very, very fragile. Not only the euro, but the union as well, because it's artificial. And I think that's what would happen on a world government and a world currency. But in the meantime, it could get pretty messy, and they're going to work very hard to get organized, which means they'll work hard to undermine our personal liberties.
All right. That's most of the interview I did with Ron Paul live earlier, but he wasn't going to be with us for 30 minutes, but a vote came up, so I went live right at the start of the hour in the first 5 minutes, and I know some stations don't carry that, and he talked about such incredibly weighty issues that I wanted to go back over that. I have articles here where Germany, that pretty much runs the EU, is saying we're not going to help Greece with any other loans. Now, Goldman Sachs goes in. They're the key manager for the private central banks a decade ago. And they tell Greece how to create a double set of books. This is now even in Reuters. They tell them how to invest in derivatives, which internal documents that came out last year in McClatchy News Service prove they premeditatedly did it here in Iceland and Greece and Spain and a bunch of other nations. It's the same thing the IMF and World Bank do as the holding companies for these private brokerage firms and banks in the third world in the last 150 years. They go in, they give the government a bunch of money at 30, 40% compounding interest, and they tell them in internal agreements that have come out, don't pay this back, and then you're going to give us your water, your roads, your infrastructures, your government. And then it doesn't matter who gets in office after that, or if it's a dictator or whatever the case is, the banks now run it. And they do this out of fiat money backed up by U.S. and European taxpayer money. Now this new banking system that they're setting up, this Bank of the World, this new constitution of and by the banks, they will break their bonds with even Western governments